G'day traders, welcome to wrap up of Thursday the 16th of August. Daily charts here, very interesting day. We've hit these all-time highs and pushed through them. So basically this high point over here is, we made that high during March, but it's actually the high of the last couple of years. So a very significant area in the markets that we're approaching at the moment. And when we watched it on the 1 minute charts, it happened mid-afternoon. The price came up to that high, basically to the tick, but just pushed straight through it. So I had no problems in pushing higher at this particular stage. But so, still momentum on the upside here. As far as having a look on the shorter term, so here's a 15-minute chart. So, sorry, I should call it a medium-term chart. A great way to really link up those daily, longer-term charts with the shorter-term charts that we actually trade and use our entries for. And here we are. This is the particular day that we just had, so you can see very much a day on the upside once we pushed up through those highs. Here's a trend line that was drawn in before the day even started. Once we made these three high points here, I drew this trend line in. I was interested to watch what the market did once it approached it in the cash market, and again we hit it a couple of times. You can see we pushed straight through it, but then you bounced straight off it as support. So once you see a trend line confirmed on both sides, so as a resistance and then a support, that really confirms the area. That's what I like about this one back here had confirmations on both sides of it, and that whether you're talking about trend lines or support and resistance areas, really confirms a strong area and confirms that many traders are looking at the area. Has to be that way, otherwise the market wouldn't react like it does to that, or almost to the tick. And you can see now in the pre-market we're coming down and getting a bit of bounce off the area as well, or hanging around the area. So it'll be interesting to see what the market does come the opening of Friday, whether we get a decent bounce off or whether they push back underneath it. Either way, going to continue it through, and it should be an area that plays out again and again as far as this trend line is concerned. Down here, 1403, just still got this level marked in here just because it's one of the most significant key levels in the market at the moment. I've got some charts that I'm always watching while trading. It's got key levels drawn all over it, so there's lines all over the place. But this particular one, just to emphasize the point, I've just got this one level because it seems to be probably the most significant level in the market at the moment. We've obviously pushed well away from it now, but for a while there, the market was really dealing around it. I've showed this many times. We really held underneath it. We got above it, held as support, then got underneath it, held as resistance, and then we're getting above it. Now it's using it as support again in this cash market. It dealt around this area, tried to break through without any sort of real conviction there, and it's got a really decent bounce, and from there it's launched itself to the upside. So this 14.3 definitely playing its role in the market. So here we go. These are shorter term markets. Something I want to point out that I trade is not necessarily a trading technique that everyone wants to use, but what I think it does, whether you trade or not, it certainly gives the market a little bit of clarity and a way to look at the the opening of the market. If you refer over to this 1 minute chart here, I haven't got any lines on here at the moment, and if you might just look at that, it looks not a mess, but it's hard to interpret what's exactly going on, especially around this period here. But what I do is basically take the pre-market, so these two lines that I've drawn on the 5 minute chart to kind of give it more clarity. Taking the pre-market, so taking the low of the pre-market, the high of the pre-market, and when I say pre-market, I just want to see the last 3-4 hours. Most significant, that's when the European market's open. Any time before that is just really irrelevant because none of the major economies, Asia is open, but it's not as a major impact on this market. It's really European and the US markets that we're looking at. Okay, so I draw what you might call a perimeter around the pre-market. Then look what these markets want to do, whether they want to push out either side of these perimeters and basically use those areas. So for example, the low here, use it as resistance to push lower from and launch itself from, or in this particular case, the upside, get through it, use it as support to launch itself from. Okay, now you can see both times in this particular case, the market's broken out both sides. But something, if you incorporate other markets, it usually, most times from trading this particular area for quite a while now, most times other markets will really give you an idea of what's going on. And what you want to see is all the markets together pushing through and showing strength through an area. Okay, so there's a couple of things about this downside which, it has got down underneath it, and then where it could have used as resistance has pushed through, but it was it was quite a predictable area that it wasn't likely to really go down from here. A couple of reasons that there's that fairly strong support region at 1403. So when you're trying to deal around that area, I'd give it a bit more space to see what that area wants to play out and do. But that aside, what I really look at every single day is the other markets, like I said, and seeing them all push through with power and conviction. So here's an example of the Nasdaq. So here's the opening of the Nasdaq. You can see it's bouncing, it's pushing straight back, and it's just not wanting to head on the downside. Anytime it tries to go lower, it's getting a pretty good rejection off those sort of this low areas and bouncing straight back up into the range. Okay, so just there's no conviction there on the downside. Then all of a sudden, so the market's still within this range. All of a sudden, you get all this power to the upside. The ES is breaking up here, and you'll see that same market. Let me bring over the Nasdaq again. Now look at on the upside. It's pushing through these, well, the top side of the market, and there's no sort of anything holding it back, and there's momentum and there's power on the upside. And you'll see all the other markets are doing that at the same time. Gets through this area eventually here, and then uses as support, and that's where it launches itself from. For me, you got to then around this, that's just a general setup. You need specific rules, and then basically a blueprint of exactly how you find the trades. Like for me, it needs to push through a certain distance, come back and use it as support, but I've got an exact blueprint of whether it's the downside or the upside of what I look for. Okay, so I'm looking for the tradable area. Down here wasn't tradable. I didn't get all the ticks in the boxes, so to speak. There was no market conviction through this area on the downside. Then we got market conviction on the upside here. It was pushing through, there was power. So then I resort to my blueprint of the setup and then look to get on board that way. But that's just a quick, bit of an example of how you could make, whether you want to specifically trade something like that or not. But that sort of general concept gives the first hour or two a lot of direction, and by placing those perimeters, you can really see what the market's doing in regards to the upside and the downside. So as far as the rest of the day, this market, after having an initial push down without any power and then pushing up, the market all day long just pushed up with some slight pullbacks. You can see slight pullback, higher high, slight pullback, higher high. This is where we broke through 1350. So you can see it's bounced off it right at the tick, just come back a little bit. Then we've got this powerful candle straight through the high. So the reason, obviously, there's a heap of buyers looking to take this higher, this high higher, and from there it's bounced off it as a bit of support. It's eventually come back and got underneath a little bit, and then we've dealt sideways. So overall, a day when you get one directional moves like that without much of a pullback, your opportunities are certainly going to be limited. And then just to show on the 1 minute chart, no sort of pullback as far as underside power points. You can see it's just all going up through the upside power points. From midday onwards. So here we go. Here it's even that upside move just really slowed down. You can see very sideways action. Each candle is a tick or two ticks. So as far as price action is concerned, very limited. Just due to the lack of volume at the moment, just with the American and European summer breaks, but the volume will come back. And then this is this little period here where we broke through the highs, and then once it did that, it got a little bit more volatile. Certainly not a massive movements, but more than what we had previously, that's for sure. Anyway, that's a wrap up for Thursday, and we'll be back on Friday.